Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild, a podcast that is all about the experiences and memories that playing board games with friends and families can create. On this episode, we're going to talk about our top 10 games.
This is the first time I'm giving out a list.
Yeah, it's the second time for Nathan and I, but mine's a lot different now. A lot of new games came out, or new games to me that really impressed me, and I got a whole bunch on the docks that'll probably move up once I get more plays with them. What was your announcement, Dan?
Okay, well, it's not so much an announcement as a piece of news. An acquaintance of mine by the name of David Digby made available through his Facebook page a solo robot for the game Concordia. Ooh. James, do you like the game Concordia?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so he posted this to BGG a while ago, and I played this bot a good 6 to 8 times. So when he announced that he was working on adding support to the bot so that you could play it with forum tiles and salt, I was immediately sent him a message and been like, hey, I put in some playtests and I have some ideas for how to improve it. Can I help? If you look up this file, not the one that's posted to BGG, but the one he posted about on his Facebook page, you will see my name attached to the file as a designer credit.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Now, David Digby is just a fellow BGG user and game designer. He actually worked on the solo mode for the game Chocolate Factory. It looks like a pretty good game to me. I haven't done full research on it yet, but it's about chocolate, so I'm game for more. There's actually a YouTube run-through of this solo bot done by a friend of his. I believe the channel name is called Singular Stars.
Oh, cool.
So there's the information that I have.
Fun fact, I don't like chocolate. Yes, I am weird.
You are a Philistine, sir. Not the first time my name has been on something either, because I had previously self-posted a file just on my own for a solo bot for the game Last Will.
I looked up your profile and I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Concordia, one of my favorite games.
So it's available for everyone to look at and play test, but we have some refinements yet to make. It's actually been a really great experience working with them.
The solo play for Concordia would move it higher up on my list. I do not get to play it very often, but I do love the game.
Yeah, I will admit there's several variants for solo play for Concordia if you go into the variants forum on the BGG page. But I really like this one because it's an almost intelligent Automa style system. And while the bot is not specifically designed to be added to a multiplayer game, it can be, which is kind of relevant for Concordia because different player counts change the way the map feels and it changes the pool of available cards that are in the game.
That'd be good. I also thought, have you ever heard of a 10x10?
I have heard of this. I'm not for doing one.
No?
It would be near impossible for me to pick 10 games that I'm going to play 10 times over the course of the year.
You're like Hearts, Spider Solitaire. We've done it in a day.
I could cheat and make one of them Magic. That would be over like in 2 weeks.
So 10 for 10 is actually you pick 10 games and you play them 10 times before the end of the year.
Yeah. I came up with a count of the total plays I've logged through BGG for the year 2019. And I forget what that number is now. It was over 100, but not by too much. It was closer to 100 than 200.
Might have beat you on that. Minimally, I play 5 games a week because we play a game every lunch hour at work.
I usually play games only twice a week, and it's usually like 2, very rarely 3 at Board Game Club, and then like 1 every Monday afternoon with my brother. It's my day off, and why not?
334 plays. Not quite one for every day.
Yeah, I've never logged my plays. My number would be, unfortunately, rather low.
No, it's perfect. Where my most played game is. It's not going to probably be on my top 10. Ooh, Castles of Burgundy. There's 21 plays of the Castles of Burgundy.
Maybe I did break 200. I just did a rough count here.
I would bet you broke 200. So my 2 number 1 played games are the Castles of Burgundy and the Pandemic Legacy Season 2, 17 games of that.
Yeah, it's just barely over 200. I think a rough count is 210.
We do a game a day at work, so that really got my number up really high. A lot of escape rooms. At least I feel a little better because most of my top 10 is on the top part of my high plays. I didn't think they would be, just because some of them are hard to get to the table.
Yeah, most of my top 10 have high play counts just because I looked at games play counts and gave that a certain amount of weight when assigning numerical values to them.
Yeah. I go by the heart. No kidding.
I used a spreadsheet and used pure statistics, except that, I was making up numbers to put into the spreadsheet.
So that's okay. You do an intelligent approach. I do more of these are the ones I like.
Well, even in my top 10, There's very few of them I actually even played this year.
When we do the honorable mention stuff, I have 5 games that were in the 10 spot or higher. So the one that's in my 10 spot is probably not going to survive.
Alright, so it's squeaked in there.
Alright, let's see how to do this scientifically. Does everyone have a 20-sided die? Okay, so Nathan's using a gigantic dice tower. I'm just going to roll this on the table. It is a metal die, so it'll probably scratch the hell out of it. I don't care. Roll your die and give me your number. I got 12.
Oh, I got 11.
I got a 10.
Wow. We'll go round robin style. So I guess I'll be me, Nathan, and then Dan.
That's okay. You're sort of the leader of this show anyway, so I support you going first.
So I used an empirical...
I mean, nobody beat it, so...
I didn't think I'd win with a 12, but
it's above average.
True.
it's like me. No kidding. Alright, so my number 10 is Scythe by Jamie Stegmaier. So Scythe is 1920s dystopian alter reality, and it seems like it's going to be a mech combat game. Just from looking at it, because you get different factions with tons of different mechs. But what it really turns out to be is a really well-designed Euro that can have combat. And the way the game works is you're going to do different things during the game to basically get stars. So you're just doing different goals to do different things. And one of them, actually 2 of them, is going to be combat. So 2 times that you do combat, you can get up to 2 stars unless you're a special faction. Each player has asymmetric powers in it. So you have wildly different powers, and then you have random player board underneath that determines what your efficiencies are for each thing you do. You can never repeat an action, again, unless you're a special faction. There's always things that break these rules. So if you want to move one turn, then you're going to have to do something else the next, like produce. Again, what really makes the game is the way that the economy works in the Euro. So basically, these actions you pick, how you use your resources and how you upgrade things and how you go for these stars really make the game. And even when you do get your stars, there's a chart on the side, which is going to be your popularity. And your popularity goes up or down depending on different choices you make. And that's actually your matrix that you determine for how many points you get for everything you do outside of it. It's a really good game. There's a lot more mechanics to it. The big thing to know is if you're looking for like a pure combat game, it is not. It is closer to a Euro. It's really well designed. It's really good. It's really streamlined. Everything you can do feels really mechanic engine-y wise. And if I could get it more to the table, it would definitely probably creep up higher on my top 10, but it has dropped to 10. Each of you guys have both hit Scythe, right?
Played it. I feel like it is 100% solid at the very least, and extremely good at its best.
It does a good job. Like a lot of Euros, when they do put in combat, the combat's usually kind of weak. This one, I think it actually has a solid combat. You're not using it a whole lot, but you are somewhat incentivized to occasionally do combat. So in the game, there is usually 1 or 2 incidents of actual combat going on. It's not like Race for the Galaxy where there's combat in one of the expansions, but you might do combat every 10 games.
And unless you're the one faction that can get multiple stars for combat, I've gone a lot of games where I just never did combat. I actually made my stuff to try to get people to get combat with me, so I lost. Because if you lose combat and you have workers around it, you drop their popularity. So I would shove workers around it and put resources around there. Because that's the other cool thing about the game. You don't get to hide your resources behind a panel. They're on the board and people can take them.
Yeah, so you're trying to do a Loki strategy in this game?
It works. A lot of times people leave me alone because it only takes one person to realize how many points they just lost from attacking me. I don't even try to win them.
Attacking is something that's definitely in the game, but the game disincentivizes attacking because of the potential losses that you might take on that favor track, and also because combat is effectively it's an expendable resource. You set your dial and you actually lose that many points. So after you've done a combat, and successful or not, you spent some points, so now you're in a weaker position in relationship to combat, and maybe you're suddenly easy pickings for somebody else.
It's definitely pragmatic.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
You have to be aware of it, because if you make your thing too juicy, like you just leave one worker there with a ton of resources, even though I don't like attacking, I'm doing it. So there's a little bit of that. Like, you have to be somewhat guarded, and if someone doesn't leave something completely open for me, I'll never attack them.
My number 10, I made a quick joke about it, but it's Blood Rage.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The only thing bad about that is it's your number 10.
Blood Rage is Eric Lang Simon. It is a dudes on the map style game where you are upgrading your clan, upgrading your individual warriors, getting out monsters, trying to control areas and pillage. It is kind of cool. You have all these nice minis to go with these monsters, so you can go for that strategy, getting these big cool monsters out and really slapping people around. Or you could just try for a more passive strategy and really just go for hoping people ignore you, or go Loki and actually try and get your people killed and try to get people attack you, and you get points for having your people go to Valhalla. End of each era, there's also going to be Ragnarok's going to happen, so a region of the board is going to be wiped out, but any people there, you get points for actually being killed, which is a unique thing among board games, is the idea that dying is not necessarily a bad thing, and it does very much fit the Viking mythology and ethos, really.
So what would you say if I would say that Blood Rage is not a dudes on the map game, that it is a card drafting, hand management, Euro, disguised as a dude on the map game?
I can see that, but that's actually the parts I don't like.
You don't even have area control, really.
Yeah, to me that's a stretch, but I've only played it the one time. I don't have quite the lens on it that you guys do.
I know the thing that I don't like about the game is oddly the thing that everybody else likes. I don't like the drafting. I'm not big on drafting as a mechanic. It's actually one of my least favorite card mechanics.
Well, the drafting definitely is the core of the game when you're playing with super experienced players, because it's at the level of, if you don't draft the right card on your turn, you might as well give the win to the person on your left or right, if you have all experienced players. Because there's certain combos in Blood Rage, once you play it enough, you know you can't let the person who you know what they played last turn get. There's a lot of hate drafting in it. You have to hate draft in Blood Rage.
That is the reason why I don't really care much for drafting, because it does kind of favor the people that know the game well, and I rarely play a game frequently enough to memorize any of the cards and really learn the best combos. But it is still in my top 10. It's a great game. It would have been higher on my top 10 if it was not for the drafting mechanic.
I was really hoping Rising Sun would have beat Blood Rage for me, but Rising Sun has its own problems. Moving on. How about you, Dan? What's your number 10?
My 10 turned out to be Godfather, Corleone's Empire. So we have a trio of games that all involve awesome miniatures, strangely enough.
And 2 Eric Langs in a row.
Godfather, we've talked about at least once or twice before, but it is a combination game. It is a mixture of worker placement and area control. Those two things actually mesh together extremely well in this game. I have played this game multiple times, and I have sincerely thought about putting my guys out just for the area control scoring that happens at the end of the round instead of just the action that I do. So it's got equal weight.
Now, I can't say anything wrong with this at all because I yet to play it still, which is super sad. But it seems like a super solid game. I know almost everyone that's played it has loved it, so solid choice for 10. Unlike Nathan's, it should have been higher.
I do like Godfather as well, and I gotta get you to play it next time you're up here, or I'm down there, I'll bring it. It's a solid game, it's got some really nice mechanics, and then it actually does have a lot of thematic ties. The actual Godfather is not that strongly into it, but you do definitely get the, gangsters feel, and the whole, send people into the river to sleep with the fishes.
I thought Godfather wasn't in it at all, it was just the other families.
Yeah, each player is basically vying for the favor. There is a Godfather miniature in the game, but I think it's just the round tracker.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. Thematic extremely. I went looking for a really mafia crime themed game, and this is the best one I've found so far.
Yeah, definitely a good choice. I definitely have to play it. I almost like everything I've ever played of Eric Lang, a couple exceptions, but most everything. So I bet that game's up there. So my number 9 is Dead of Winter, a Crossroad game. That game is made by Jonathan Gilmour and Isaac Vega. Dead of Winter is a semi-cooperative game where you have to survive through a post-apocalypse world where you're just trying to not get eaten by zombies, and you're trying to keep the morale up of your colony for X length of time. The thing that really makes the game is the crossroad cards. So you have your scenario, but every time you take a turn, the person to your left or right looks at one of the crossroad cards, and if it triggers, reads it off, then you have some sort of thematic event that plays out. And in themselves aren't that impressive. They're just like a story element that's fragmented inside the deck, but the story that the players put together from the scenario combined with the crossroad cards really makes the game every time I play it. I played a lot with my daughters, and I played it a lot with different groups, and every time we played it, we come away with super awesome different stories that made the game great. And one of the things I dislike in cooperative game, like a trader mechanic, but I think it actually works really well in Dead of Winter. All your win conditions actually make everyone seem like a trader, but you can still work cooperatively. And a lot of times, if the trader doesn't work cooperatively with the group, you can exile them out, and it's really easy to tell when someone's not playing properly or being a little shifty. A lot of times, even with the trader in Dead of Winter, the scenarios are still completable. Unlike Shadows over Camelot, which can sometimes become near impossible when you have a trader in the game, Dead of Winter does have a possibility of beating it even with a crafty trader. So yeah, my number 9 is Dead of Winter. Played a lot of games with it. It's one of those games that it is the group that makes the game. It is a good game, but the group can make the game great. And it just happens that when I play it with the different groups that I got going, then it makes the game great. And that's why it's my number 9.
I'm just going to say that I need to play this.
You haven't played it? Oh.
I haven't played this yet, and I feel like it's one of the few games that actually get semi-co-op done right.
Yeah, it definitely comes the closest to make semi-cooperative work. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's the closest. And the way that the cards and everything work and the atmosphere that it makes just makes the game awesome, and you definitely have to play it.
So, my number 9 is a game made by a non-board game company.
This seems to break the theme of the list.
Tenzi, a game where you roll 10 dice, is not a game.
No.
It's an activity. I don't care what anyone says, it's an activity. Rolling dice and waiting till you get 10 of the same number is an activity.
You can't guess which game I'm referring to, huh?
Boulder Dash?
No, go for it.
It's made by Riot Games.
What? It's not Mechs versus Minions.
Yes, that's my number 9. It's Mechs vs. Minions.
Wait. Oh, not made by... Okay, I get it.
Because it's not a board game company. They actually make video games.
Actually, your statement's no longer true.
What's that?
They filed for a trademark as a board game company.
Okay.
Yeah, so they probably will be a full-fledged board game company eventually.
They're making another board game, but they haven't announced details of it yet. But at the time of making this game, they were not a board game company. They were mainly known for Dota. I don't even know what Dota is short for, but it's basically real-time strategy combat game? Yeah. But yeah, it's a video game.
Alright, so I have no idea what I'm talking about, but Wikipedia does. Dota is a multiplayer online battle arena published by Valve. It stands for Defense of the Ancients, which was a community-created mod for Blizzard Entertainment's World of Warcraft 3.
It started as that, then it became an actual supported game.
That's fine. You're already beyond my expertise because I read the thing out of Wikipedia and that's
But anyways, we are supposed to be talking about Mechs vs. Minions and board games. So, Mechs vs. Minions is a beautiful game that was pleasantly surprised with when I first got it. It was a lot of detail in production. Being a billion-dollar company, they were allowed to put a lot of quality into this without raising the price ridiculously high. So you have probably 100 or so different little minis, and you have 4 unique characters you can play as that are pre-painted and actually well pre-painted. It was one of the first games to really have a nice tray that everything fit very well in. Now you see it a lot more with Kickstarter and stuff, and you get everything's coming with custom trays for the game.
Yeah, I will say, though, that most other custom trays suck compared to the ones for Mechs vs. Minions.
Yes, this is not like Blood Rage where you have to spend an hour figuring out which mini goes into which slot in your custom tray.
I did that for 30 seconds and they ended up in the trash.
Yeah, they all fit nicely. Even if you got in the wrong one, it still fits. So it is really well done.
Yeah, they have a multi-grooving system that you could just throw them in there and every single miniature will fit.
Yes, but going beyond the production, let's talk about the mechanics and how the game works. This is a program movement game. You are drafting cards essentially, but it's cooperative drafting to add to your program, and each turn you're just adding one more card. Every card in your program gets activated in order, and the nice thing about that is like each turn you adding more cards, you're getting more and more powerful, and so pretty quickly you are decimating all these minis, because most of the minions take one hit to kill, so you can maybe kill 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 minis in a single turn once you get like really powered up. So it has a nice natural art to it. And the other great thing about this is it's taught like a video game. You got the campaign setting, but basically you have the tutorial, you have the first scenario, which kind of adds just a little bit and teaches, so it's basically each scenario is teaching you one new thing, and it's very easy to pick up. I actually pulled this out recently and played it with some non-gamers, and they picked it up easily and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for program movement, this is definitely my number one game. It killed Robo Rally for me. Mainly because if I'm going to do program movement, cooperative actually is a better genre for it.
It doesn't take much to kill Robo Rally for me. That game was dead to me years ago. So
I definitely understand that with that game. I think my daughter wanted to stab me to death the last time we played Robo Rally, so.
All right, so last number 9. All right, my number 9 is Catan. Shut up, Nathan.
I like how you picked him first, and I'm like, really? Really?
I know I'm going to get some slack for this, but
Did you just start gaming?
I looked at my collection, and I had to give Catan a decent amount of credit for being in my collection for so long and being a cornerstone of my gaming for so long. There were a few years though where I had a solid group and we played Catan like every other time we met as one of our cornerstones. So the play count for this one is through the roof for me. That's all I'm going to say about it, because at this point, everyone should know Catan, right?
Yeah, we have to give Catan a certain amount of respect because it is a game that got most gamers, or at least a large number of gamers, into the hobby. And the main reason why there's hate against it is because a lot of people, myself included, have played it so much, we just can't stand it anymore. I just played it over and over until it was dead.
Yeah, I played it a lot too. A lot of people started their board gaming hobby careers through Catan. And it's one of those games that is like the next level. Even though now Catan is sold at Target and Walmart, it is still a step above the majority of games there, with few exceptions. It's a way of introducing concepts beyond rolling and moving, where you can actually do more and you can strategize. For me, the only thing that kills it is the rolling for the resources. I understand you can mitigate it on there, and I do mitigate it when I play it. And also, I did play a lot of games of it, so I pretty much wore, like Nathan, I wore myself out of the game. But if you're talking about a true gateway game to get people into modern board games, that one's it. A lot of people will pick other games they don't understand are a lot more complicated and are beyond what the entry-level person would pick. Catan's definitely the one.
There are other really good entry-level games, but Catan has been called the monopoly of our modern era, and it deserves that because of what it's done for the hobby.
And I do like Catan a lot more than I like Machikoro.
But you like Space Base.
I never said I liked Space Base. My 8 is Wingspan, published by Stonemaier Games, designed by Elizabeth Hargrave, which is a good female designer. The game is phenomenal. Yeah, I was just going to say Wingspan is an engine building game where you get to collect birds. And you got your 3 rows in there, and the 3 rows are the rows that you can use for it. And the rows do different things, but basically your actions are either going to be get a bird from the deck or from the face-up display, like a lot of other deck builders, place a bird on one of your 3 rows, or fire off one of the rows. The game is balanced out really well because the rows that you have available are going to be where you can forage for food, which is the food that you use to play the bird into your tableau. And the more birds you put out, the easier it is for you to gain those food icons. And when you fire off that row, every bird's ability gets to fire off too. The second one, you get to lay eggs, which each egg is a point, and that, again, the more birds you put out, the more eggs you get. And the bottom one, what I like a lot, is the more birds you put on the bottom, the more cards you draw or take from that row. So depending on your strategy on the game, which can be multi-tiered because of those rows, it really gives me a Terraforming Mars feel with trying to produce an engine, but it does it in a far shorter time period and is a more concise game. Terraforming Mars gets a little crazy with all the different things you can do. This game is like pretty much straightforward, concise, and easy to teach, which is another big thing. Terraforming Mars is not easy to teach. This is easy to teach and it takes less time. I probably would predict that I'm going to get a lot more plays of Wingspan in than I will ever of Terraforming Mars, But Wingspan is still my number 8. I know Nathan's played Wingspan. You've played Wingspan, right, Nathan?
No, I have not.
No! Alright, so we got Dead of Winter and Wingspan.
I've sold like half a dozen copies through the store, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet.
Did you play Terraforming Mars yet?
I hear it's like Terraforming Mars, and I love Terraforming Mars.
There's like a little bit of a gap there because Terraforming Mars is really meaty. Wingspan is not. Terraforming Mars is rough to get a new player to play when you have like experienced players around that playing it. But Wingspan is not. So Wingspan I can teach and they can get it pretty quick and we don't have to go through a 3-hour game before you know how to play. Are you getting more of the expansion in the store?
I saw a solicitation for a restock, so I think I put myself down for one more.
I knew it flew off the shelf. No pun intended.
It did.
The gentleman I was telling about Wingspan, I was going to get the expansion on there. He ran down and bought the game and the expansion. I'm like, wow. Right before I walked in the door. It's so bad.
Recently played the expansion too, and I did like that. It doesn't complicate the game really. It doesn't change too much. It just has one new feature, a lot of new birds, and art is beautiful. So having more of that art is really a good plus.
So my list, awesome. Dan's not smack talking too much today.
I really can't argue with Wingspan.
Oh no, my list's perfect. Okay.
If it's anything like Terraforming Mars, I can't complain about it. And I'm just going on the word on the street on that one, so.
I think you'll like it. I think you'll see what I say when you play it, though, too. So, Nathan, what is your number 8?
8.
Number 8.
We're on 8s.
Numbers are hard.
Well, I know I'm going to have a lot of crossover with Jim, because we do play a lot of the same games, and we do play each other's games every once in a while. Dan, I'm not sure if I'll have any crossovers with you, but we'll see. But this is already a crossover with Jim, and that would be Scythe.
Ah!
Jim already said pretty much everything there is to say about Scythe. It's just a great Euro with smattering of Ameritrash set dressing, but it's solid. It's a game that I know I will enjoy. It's not terribly long, but it's got a good length, and it's got a somewhat epic feel, and it's largely focused on resource gathering, but there is also the elements of combat, and there are goals, and I like the whole idea that the end is triggered by the players. So you can kind of play with that and figure out, okay, I can end the game now, but am I winning? I don't know.
I will say, I think if you had to pick one expansion with Scythe, it would be Wind Gambit. Not just because it gives you the airships, which don't matter all that much, but are cool, but it also gives you modules that give you variable endgames that are really cool. So, out of all the expansion, Wind Gambit is actually, I think, the best because it'll breathe new life in the game, especially if you have a group that doesn't like the fact that the game will literally abruptly end when someone puts down their 7th star. No one else gets a turn. It just ends. Some people don't like that. But in the Wind Gambit, you can select your end scenario.
Even over Rise of Fenris?
Yes, Rise of Fenris is good, but Wind Gambit, I think, is essential, where Rise of Fenris is not, but very good.
Rise of Fenris is interesting. It's a mediocre campaign that they add to it, but a lot of cool modules that you can play with.
The content makes it good. You open tuck boxes and stuff when you play it, so I don't want to say too much because it's supposed to be a surprise if you play through the campaign. But needless to say, the components are worth it for that expansion. Alright, anyway, Dan's number 8.
My number 8 is a little card game called Grifters. Grifters takes place in the dystopian universe, which is the same universe as Coup and the Resistance. And in this game, you are crime lords taking advantage of the massive chaos to make as much money as possible. The game has a really cool card play mechanic where you play out your cards. Each individual card has its own special ability, and you can play cards individually for their special power, or you can play them in piles as a team to claim these missions that are in the middle of the table that have these explosive effects. All the card powers are pretty darn good, and it's just quick playing. We've played a lot of games of this, and it's just great.
Yes, so those 2 games. You have 2 games that I have to play.
Well, we may run across a third. We'll see.
100%. I'll be very surprised if I don't.
100% we will. Yeah.
My number 7. This one might go up. I hope it does. But right now, my number 7 is Twilight Imperium 4th Edition. I have played 4th Edition probably 6 times, which doesn't sound like a lot, but this game can take up to 8 hours.
Yeah, that's a significant investment.
Yes, but Twilight Imperium, which is done by Christian Peterson, which is the founder of Fantasy Flight Games. It's the only game that I've ever played that fits the role of a epic sprawling space fantasy. So it gives you that idea of 7 Star Wars movies together. There's no additional narrative between turns. It is literally the player interaction throughout the game that makes the game. Every time I play Twilight Imperium, for how long it takes, it feels like the game is too fast. Feel like someone gets to 9 points or we get to 9 points really quickly. But that is not true, because that's like 5 to 6 hours in. To have a game do that makes it like a masterpiece. And when you do combat, you actually roll dice to resolve the combat. And you would think that would be a problem, because a lot of games have gone past that. But in this game, it doesn't, because in essence, most of the time when you resolve in combat, you might have 1 or 2 ships you lost or 1 or 2 ships you didn't lose that you didn't expect, but it ends in the same way. But it's not the combat that matters. It's completing objectives that win you the game. So although it does have dice rolling, which I do love for combat, it's still a pure strategy game. Because a lot of the time that combat doesn't matter. You're just trying to hurt someone to prevent them from getting their objective. There's some exceptions, like if you want to take control of Mechatol Rex, you do have to fight normally. But again, it's a heavy investment because it's hard to get a group of people that want to stick around for 8 hours to play the game. So that's my number 7, Twilight Imperium. Nathan's played it. Dan, you have not played that game yet?
Nope. Haven't logged that one.
I believe you are written down for the next game night with Twilight Imperium, whether you want to or not. So there's that.
I will resist, but I will not resist emphatically. How about that?
There you go. Especially when food's involved.
Yeah.
It's fair statement that it's the only epic sprawling space game you've played, because you have not played Zaya yet.
Mm.
Yeah, her Zaya is awesome. I do have reservations. Well, I do think I'll like Zaya.
It's a different game experience.
I'm not lumping Eclipse in with Twilight Imperium, so I don't know that it can supplant Twilight Imperium, but I'm really interested to see if it can.
Yeah, whereas Twilight Imperium's more focused on the combat and technology and stuff, Zaya's a truer sandbox game. Not quite as epic, but definitely more sprawling and more freedom, and a very satisfying game as well.
I'll agree to that.
I know I have 2 Zaya lovers in here. The question is it going to be on their top 10? We shall see. All right, David, with that foreshadowing, what's your number 7? Probably not Zaya, because that would be hilarious.
My number 7 is another crossover already, and that's Dead of Winter.
All right.
So Dan, get on that.
It is a good game.
Yeah, Dead of Winter, for everything James said, it's a great game that has a lot of potential for telling stories to go along with it. And you'll talk about this game for days or weeks after playing it. It's like all the things that happen that really tie you to your character and really make it meaningful when various people die or succeed at things. You know, everything that happens actually resonates with the players. And that's so rare in game. I loved it so much, I have actually 3 different versions of it here.
You have The Longest Night, you have Colony Wars?
No, I don't have Colony Wars. I have The Longest Night, I have Original Dead of Winter, and I have Next Gen.
Nah, Next Gen isn't Dead of Winter. Next Gen was even a different designer, I believe. Oh, no, it's Gen 7. It's not Next Gen.
Oh, sorry, Gen 7, yes. And I'll have to crack that in post.
Gen 7 is a Crossroads game, but it was made by a different designer. It was made by Steve Nicks. I'm interested to see what you say when you play it. I think Next Gen actually breaks down. I don't think it's even mildly as good as Dead of Winter.
Yeah, it didn't get remotely the same buzz as Dead of Winter. So, we'll see.
You play it and you might see what I'm talking about, or you might not, so it'd be interesting to see what you think.
It's also all the way down to 4,990 in the board game ranking.
Yeah, it's not a good game. I'll take that back. Just because I don't think it's a good game doesn't mean it's not a good game, but I personally don't think it's a good game.
We'll see. I'll have to play it and see if it's really that bad, or if it's just because it got overshadowed by Dead of Winter.
Hey, it's not above 10,000, so it must be okay at least, right?
There you go. It is playable. It seems to take everything that Dead of Winter did right and make it wrong. Whatever. I'm being too mean on it, probably.
Probably, yeah. My number 7 is Terraforming Mars. Now, James, you were poo-pooing on it earlier, so I feel like I must defend it now. Before I do, I just want to say that Terraforming Mars is one of only 2 games that I acquired in 2019 that made my entire list. The other one being the already mentioned Godfather. So I've had this game for less than a year, and I find it so amazing that here is where I put it. So the game's just got really fluid arc to it. You start off weak and piddly, and you see your numbers going up, and you see your cubes accumulating. You see your tiles spreading out over the map, and then someone throws a giant asteroid at the planet, and it's amazing. I don't think I've had a bad game of this yet. I will admit to perhaps one lackluster experience when we were trying to figure out how to end the game, and the game needed to end like 3 turns before it actually did, but we got there.
There you go. Yeah, Terraforming Mars is an awesome game. So I'm going to do the same thing I did to Nathan. The essential expansion, I think, for Terraforming Mars is Prelude. Prelude actually shortens the game and gives you a boost at the start of the game, which shortens it, but it's a big thing. It's nice. Out of all the expansions, there's like a zillion expansions. I think Prelude is 100% essential for the game that you should get. More essential than most other expansions.
Yeah. Full disclosure, that one mediocre play was an experiment of sorts. We decided to start with a production of 1 in all our resource types, but we played with corporate expansion. You're not supposed to combine those 2 things. What we decided to try out to see if it was workable variant, and we ended up with a suboptimal experience. So take that for what it is.
Yeah, they do let you do that because it says in the rules you can. It just suggests not to.
The other essential thing you have to get for this game is any one of the many versions of the player mat that they've made that hold the pieces better.
Yeah, it needs better organization. I'm worried about storage. I need to find something that's going to fit back into the box.
I got the latest Kickstarter from Fricks Games, and it came with the player boards in there. Skip it. If you didn't get it, don't worry about it. They're not great. All mine are already warped. Dataless production makes it really good. Player board or any of the other ones are good. Or do what I did for the last 2 years or whatever. I used to use a sheet of paper and run them down. But yeah, the player boards are not good from the Kickstarter. I pulled them out of the box warped, and they only got worse. It's actually posted on their expansions thread too, so there's a big thing on it too. I think what ended up happening is they didn't have a humidity-controlled area, and they had the cardboard from the top at a different location than the cardboard from the bottom. I'm just guessing that, because definitely you can't put things on it. So I might be back to the sheet of paper.
All right, well, let's move on from that to more great games, shall we?
Terraforming Mars is a great game.
Terraforming Mars is a great game.
Yes, it is.
So my number 6 is Blood Rage by Eric Lang.
Oh, this sounds familiar.
I know.
Third crossover on it.
I have played the mess out of Blood Rage. My daughters love it. I've dragged it out to a ton of different game nights. It's gone over well. It's a really easy game to teach, and it's very fluid play. There's some negative things to it. That's why it's my number 6 instead of the top, but overall, it's a wonderful game. I love playing it. It may slip farther down because there's a lot more games coming out that's starting to play a lot more, and Blood Rage does have a problem where if you become well-versed or memorize the cards, and you play with other people that memorize the cards, it creates a barrier to entry to the game for new players. It's rough because it's hard to throttle back to teach them how to play the game and not like decimate them. But Blood Rage, I've definitely had a lot of fun with it. Played it a lot. I have every expansion thing you do for it, and the Kickstarter's coming in with the extra bits for it too. It's probably going to stay there for a while, like I said, because I play it so often. Just a great game. Out of the trilogy, Ankh hasn't came out yet, but Rising Sun, which is the sequel to Blood Rage, didn't make my list because Blood Rage is still that much better design, I think. Rising Sun got into the issue of being crazy for the amount of junk you can get and near impossible to figure out what everyone has because all the different asymmetric monsters and all the different asymmetric powers. For Blood Rage, it's just super simple. There's only a couple monsters in the game. When you draft, you get to see them as they go by for the most part. So in a couple games, you just generally get it. So, sorry, rambling on. Blood Rage, awesome, number 6.
So my number 6, I combined 2 games.
Yep, that's cheating.
Yeah, it's 100% cheating. But here's my surprise face. It's my normal face. Go ahead.
Because you know what it is, right?
Because you cheat.
I don't cheat usually.
Balderdash and Balderdash 2.
No, when I say what it is, you'll understand why.
Okay.
And that's Pandemic Legacy. So Season 1 and Season 2.
Ah, all right.
You literally have the same rating for both of those games.
No, but the reason why I feel like which one you prefer has more to do with how well the game went for your individual play, how much luck you had. I don't feel like I can fairly judge between the two because the game changes so much based on what happens in your specific playthrough. This is the game that really made Legacy popular. This was not the first Legacy game, but it was the one that really brought it to the forefront. In this game, you were going through the year, having a plague spreading. Every month you do well or you do poorly, and that would influence how the next game plays. And you'd be revealing things, tearing things up as things happen, and the surprises weren't really as huge surprises, but there's a lot of limits as far as how surprising you can really be in a board game. The story was alright, not phenomenal. The mechanics of it and how everything kind of added on was really good. I can't say too much because it's Legacy.
I had a lot of fun playing it. I did like Pandemic Legacy Season 1 a lot more than 2. Just personal, and my game group did, but everyone has their own thing. Legacy game, good, great. Dan, did you get to play either of those?
No, I've never played a campaign of any Legacy game. I've played some campaign-style games, but those are something a little bit different.
You gotta play at least one Legacy. Don't start with Seafall, though.
But why? It's so cheap.
For like the $12 you can sometimes find it for, I would say it's worth it. But beyond that, no, it's not. I never play full price for that game.
There is one Legacy game on my list.
Charterstone?
I was actually very tempted by Clank Legacy.
Yeah.
I love Clank in Space, but Clank Legacy is the fantasy Clank and not the sci-fi Clank. So I was like, meh.
Clank Legacy is getting really, really good reviews, too.
I do like that they threw in the Acquisition Inc. material to that.
I haven't seen the Dice Tower Top 100, but I almost bet you that Clank Legacy is going to be on Tom Vassel's Top 20, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I've been watching that, but they haven't posted that high yet. They haven't finished the whole list.
So I'm calling it. I'm calling it as Clank Legacy is going to be in Tom Vassel's Top 20.
I think that's a safe bet.
Whatever.
And Tom Vassell we trust. But I think if you did pick a Legacy game, Clank Legacy is definitely a game I want to play. I think it'd be awesome. But there's another one that I'm not going to mention. Yeah, it could be on somebody's list.
Well, I failed at life here because my number 6 is the Seventh Continent. All right, so the Seventh Continent is this amazing exploration and survival game, all printed on 2-inch by 2-inch square cards, and the game is on like 16,000 of these that comprise the items that you can craft, the actions that you could take, the map. Some cards represent bits of knowledge that you can acquire, puzzles to solve, monsters to fight. I've had this game for a couple years, but it is a testament to this game's awesome that when I did first acquire it, I played it consistently for like half a year before it went back onto the shelf and I gave it a break. So there's the Seventh Continent for you folks.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to play this with you at some point because I have it, I've played it. I don't know if we missed something in the rules because it always felt like we were just treading water, not really getting anywhere, and not even having a clue where we were supposed to be going.
I have resolved the next time I go back to the continent, i.e. play a campaign, to start taking notes on it because my times in between plays are a little bit too long for my memory to work. When I was playing it like every week, every other week, we could pick up where we left off and know where we needed to go because we know that this thing is over there somewhere. But if you're doing anything besides the starter quest, you sort of need that foreknowledge of the map layout in order to figure out where you need to go. Maybe the only game's weakness.
Are you guys thinking about backing the Seventh Citadel Kickstarter that will be coming out, I think, sometime later this year?
No, because I've still got plenty of content to dig into.
Yeah, I had no intention to back that.
Alright, fair enough. Alright, so my number 5 is Terraforming Mars, designer Jacob Bricks.
What a surprise! I'm just surprised it's this low for you.
I love Terraforming Mars. It's my oldest daughter's favorite game. It is probably the best, or at least the most entertaining engine building game I've played. So it's probably not the best designed engine building game, but it is the most entertaining, and for that, it makes it the best for me. Gone through all the expansions, and we've got to the point where we actually took all the expansions out of The only one we leave in it is Prelude. Because all the expansions, they're nice to play, like, occasionally, but they really take away from the point of the game.
Yeah, like the core loop.
So they make these distractions that really don't help anything, and they seem like they do, but they just prolong the game. And Colonies is a really good example of that. Colonies had all this junk you could do on the side. It doesn't really matter.
Do you play with the in-box, quote, expansion, unquote, the corporate era cards or not?
We always play with the corporate era cards, and we always play with Prelude.
Okay.
So Prelude with the corporate era cards is phenomenal. You get those asymmetric organizations that you get to play. You can match them up with the Prelude cards to give you a nice boost to help you along with the engine that's going into.
Number 5 for me, not Terraforming Mars. It's actually a game that was for a long time my number 1. Okay, the facepalm tells me you think you know what it is.
I probably do. Go for it.
It dropped for me, partially because there's so many great games that have come out recently, but also because I've recently played a game that did not go so well. Cosmic Encounters.
Oh!
Not what you thought it was.
No. But I can see how it dropped, but not the game I was thinking.
Well, Cosmic Encounters is a really excellent game where every game is going to be a little different, because in the base game you get 50 different aliens. And these aliens all have player powers that feel like they're ridiculous overpowered, but they interact with each other in interesting ways. Which means every game's going to be different. 99% of the time, this comes out as being a really intense game and interacting in interesting ways. Every once in a long while, you might get a game that just the powers don't line up very well and they don't sync. If you have the wrong game group, it may not go over as well. But the basics of this game mechanically are actually fairly simple. You have 5 planets, and you're trying to conquer 5 other planets, and you're just using cards to determine combat. Add that to however many ships you're sending in, but it's these player powers that really make the game.
I will say Cosmic Encounter, I haven't played it all that much, but I personally found that it worked best if you limit the selectable pool of aliens that people can get randomly. I also found that I never ever want to play Cosmic Encounter with a new group of people with anything other than the starter selected aliens.
Yeah, I can see that. The other thing I do see a lot, and I've debated doing myself, is there's certain aliens I don't like as much. I could take those out. Especially since I have so many expansions, I probably have 100 aliens or more.
Yeah, you're not going to miss 2 or 3, you know?
Have you played Cosmic Encounter, Dan?
I have not.
Because so many games are going to get you to play now.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll make your top 10, but I think you'd like it.
I feel like it's on my bucket list of games I've got to try at least once, because Richard Garfield has gone on record as saying it's one of the inspirations for Magic the Gathering. That makes me raise an eyebrow or two.
The other big thing you can say about Cosmic Encounters that's a big plus for it is the fact that it's been around for almost 30 years from the original version, and it's still very popular. So that's a testament to how strong the game is.
So's Catan.
Monopoly's still popular.
Among non-gamers.
I wouldn't lump the two together. Catan's a much better game.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so what's Dan's number 5?
My number 5 is Betrayal. The original Betrayal on House of the Hill. This game is like the perfect example of a thematic game where you just kind of go into it expecting the unexpected. You allow the dice to fall where they may, and you're just along for the ride.
It's like the perfect campy game.
The situations that can arise in the game are usually of a very archetypal variety. They're almost predictable in the way that traditional horror is predictable, even. So in Betrayal on House of Hill, you and your 3 to 5 friends are exploring a haunted house. And as you're exploring, you're revealing rooms, you're finding items or encountering spooky events. But the real key to the game is the infamous omens. Every time an omen is discovered, a check is made. The check is designed in such a way that eventually it will fail. When it fails, the haunt triggers. You check the rule book to see which one of 50 scenarios you are now playing. And then most of those scenarios, one player becomes the traitor and their character may or may not be still playing the scenario, but if they are, they'll usually have some help in the form of monsters, and if they aren't, they take control of the monsters in the scenario. It's highly variable because there's 50 different scenarios, and like I said, there's a lot of stat and skill checks that determine whether or not things happen in the game as well.
Yeah, and it's actually one of the games that got mainstream support too. Like, you can actually pick up Betrayal at Target and Walmart too, and it's a really good game.
It's had its spin-offs too. There's the Widow Walk expansion that adds 50 more scenarios in case you don't have enough content with the base game. There's the D&D themed one.
Betrayal at Baldur's Gate.
There's a Betrayal Legacy even, if that's your cup of tea.
Yeah, I thought that one might be up your alley, the Betrayal Legacy on.
Yeah, because of the player count, because I can't get a consistent group to the table. So I haven't jumped on that yet, but if my situation changes, that would be near the top, let me tell you.
I think that's a big downfall in Legacy games is the group commitment.
Yeah, I really want to try the Legacy one. I would say Original Betrayal is in my top 50, which is still pretty good. That's like top 5% of games I played.
Do you think Betrayal would help offloading it onto an app like Mansions of Madness? Not at the level of Mansions of Madness, but just not having to look up the Haunt or the Omen, maybe that part. So you can have more than 50 scenarios at that point.
I think it's possible, but the design would have to be radically different. Maybe the app selects what haunt is going to happen when it does happen, and then it can feed specific events to the players when events are triggered. And that would make the game so much more consistent and thematic than it currently is. But part of the game's charm is its chaos. So maybe it wouldn't work.
Ideally, you'd almost have to have two devices. So one device the betrayer would have to take, if there is a betrayer, so he knows his specific role and what he can do. The rest of the group would have to take the second device. So, yeah, there'd be some challenges to work out, but it is possible. It could be interesting.
Yeah.
So, my number 4.
Yeah, we're down to the real deal now.
So I'm getting down to the games that I think you guys can guess now, but if you had to start a game collection, what games do you have to have? So if you're starting out and you want to know, like, what game should I buy? Catan would be one of them, but another one would be Lords of Waterdeep, designed by Peter Lee and Rodney Thompson. Lords of Waterdeep is the best worker placement game that is semi-entry level. I've logged 29 plays of it, so I played it more than that because I missed some. But in Lords of Waterdeep, you're taking and you're trying to complete quests, and you have a hidden role during the game, so you get more points for doing different things in the game. But really, it's the intrigue cards and the inquest cards and the worker placement board combined that make the game. So what I mean by that is you have your quests that you're trying to complete. You have intrigue cards, which are interactive cards that you can play on your turn, which a lot of worker placement games don't have a lot of player interaction. Lords of Waterdeep does. And it's really easy to explain because you only have 5 different resources you can gather to complete these quests. Not really explaining it to give it justice, but just know that if you're going to start out with worker placement games and you want to be invested in other people's turns in a good way, Lords of Waterdeep is probably the best game to play for that. And the expansion, Scoundrels of Skullport, the only expansion for Lords of Waterdeep, but it is also great. And it's nice because I would recommend if you play it for the first time, you don't include the expansion, but it doesn't take much to add in the expansion to give more life to the game and get more replayability into it. And the 29 plays I've had have been different every single time. So, Lords of Waterdeep, my number 4. I think both of you played that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I have no objections to this being this high on your list. This is a amazing, solid game, and it had languished on my shelf for a while. And we brought it out on a whim, just sort of like, oh, we need to get this played, or maybe we need to get rid of it. And that one play was enough to convince me that, no, we need to hold on to this for another, 5 to 20 years.
And the other thing, too, is there's very few games like that can support the player count that Lords of Waterdeep can. I think with the expansion, you can get up to 7 players.
Yeah, at least 6.
That statement's starting to become less and less true with Kickstarter.
Yes, but see, having a high player count and still having it playable in a reasonable amount of time is what Lords of Waterdeep can do.
Oh, yeah.
It does do. It is not much different between playing 7 players and 4. There is a time difference, but it's not horrific.
The game actually does really scale very well because it changes the number of agents that you can play per round.
So, number 4, Lords of Waterdeep.
My number 4 is yet another crossover. This 2019 game.
Wingspan?
Yep.
Oh.
Which I have yet to win. The problem I realized is I just enjoy the engine building so much, I forget to score points.
That's actually a problem I have with engine builders the first time I play them, too.
I don't mind the slightest that I haven't won. I just enjoy collecting the birds so much and, seeing what the birds do and having a nice tableau in front of me that has all this functionality, and then I might score some points. But we've already talked about this one a fair amount, so we can probably just continue on.
So what's Dan's number 4?
My number 4 is Eminent Domain.
Yes.
Eminent Domain is one of the older games in my collection, though certainly not the oldest. The oldest on this list is Catan for me, but Eminent Domain is a deck building game where you have role cards. So there's 5 basic roles in the game. And these cards, unlike a lot of deck builder cards, are identical. Like all the warfare cards are exactly the same function in your deck. And yet you pick up more of them. And because of the way the roles work, your warfare is now suddenly more powerful because there's more copies of this one kind of card in your deck. And then the tech cards really mix things up, give you special powers. They have multiple symbols on them, so they could be warfare or survey at the most basic level, or do something really game-breaking at the higher level. James, you've logged quite a number of plays on as well.
Yes. Eminent Domain is awesome.
I'm willing to bet if you asked him maybe 3 years ago, this might have been his number 1 at the time.
Okay, so here's the problem with Eminent Domain, and it's not the game. Problem is that no one will play it with me. Eminent Domain is one of the few games that I almost never lose. I'm not good at playing board games generally at all. I just like them. Doesn't mean I'm good at them.
Same here.
Yeah. I don't know what it is with Eminent Domain, but something clicked. And funny story is, we actually played Eminent Domain today because they pulled it out. And they're like, let's play it. I don't think we're playing Eminent Domain again.
You crushing too hard? What?
68 points.
That's a reasonably high score, yeah.
So the closest person was 22. I love the game. The only reason it's not on my top 10 at all is because I can't get anyone to play it with me.
I'm tempted to offer, but then again, I don't want to ruin it for myself, so maybe I'll pass.
There's a couple tricks in the game. I think so far we've tried banning cards, but I don't know. I can still get that additional strategy. There's certain combos in that game. Eminent Domain is awesome.
I've played this, but I just haven't played it enough.
You could tell it's a building block off of Puerto Rico. Seth Joffrey mentioned that he based it, Joffrey, whatever. I was thinking about Joffrey the giraffe, I guess. Anyway, he based it off of Puerto Rico. And you could tell because of the roll thing, where you pick your roll and everyone else can follow. And unlike Puerto Rico, there's a descent mechanism in Eminent Domain. Eminent Domain's awesome. Just if you ever get a chance to play Eminent Domain, I highly recommend doing it.
So, Dan, that was yours, right? It almost sounded like
I know. It was an excellent choice.
James talked a lot, but that was my pick. That was my number 4. Eminent Domain is, in fact, awesome. It is an empirical fact.
I am not arguing. I felt bad that I had to explain why it's not on my top 10.
Yeah, we're going to number 3 now. So, ladies and germs, these games are empirically awesome.
Yes, exactly. My number 3, which I don't think will get off my list anytime soon. It's going down a little bit, but I think it'll be on there for a long time. We'll see. Descent Journey in the Dark 2nd Edition. The game is awesome. I lump it in with Descent 1st Edition, but 2nd Edition definitely streamlined it and made it a lot better. You could take the stuff from the 1st Edition, put it in the 2nd Edition. Corey Canenza is the main designer I know from it, but there's like 4 or 5. Kevin Wilson too. But there's 4 or 5 designers for it. It's just an awesome game. There's so many expansions for it. There's so much content. If you want to get into a thematic dungeon delving game that has a good app-assisted program with it too, that lets you play cooperatively instead of have a one versus many, or if you'd like the DM feel like I like being the Overlord in the game a lot, this is the game. If you want a 1 versus many with an Overlord, this is it. Descent, Journey in the Dark 2nd Edition is 100% my number 3. You played it, right, Dan?
Have I ever played Descent? Maybe once. It was a while ago, though, so it's very foggy. Might have been 1st edition. I have to think about that.
All right, so I'm going to have to get you reintroduced with Descent 2nd Edition. I know Nathan's played at least once. Probably 1st edition. 2nd edition's not that old, but I don't know what your definition of old games are, but it's probably not that old.
I've played this a couple times, and it was actually one of my best finds. Is I found this on sale for $20, the base game for the 1st edition, which is a steal. But yeah, there's a lot to it, and I really need to get more plays in it. I've only played like 2 scenarios so far.
I've got a box of Descent 2nd edition in the store, and I have it bundled with an expansion. I'm not sure which one, and it's one price for both boxes, and I think it's a decent deal. I don't remember exactly the price, but there you go. For our local listeners, anyways.
My birthday's in 8 months.
That is an awesome deal. I do really feel that Descent 2nd Edition is definitely 100% worth full price. You get a lot of bang for your buck. I will probably never end playing that game because there's so much content in it. All right, Nathan, what's your number 3?
I am going to predict the future here.
You're going to predict that this is going to show up on somebody else's list?
Exactly.
All right.
So, this is Mansions of Madness.
Oh, okay. Who could that be?
I wonder who might list this as probably their number 1.
No spoilers.
Well, it's high up on your list, so what do you got to say about Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition?
It's an intense thematic game without having to do the legwork, without having to do the rules research and GMing, or you don't have to have so much what every single monster does. The app does all that for you and just lets you enjoy the game. It takes so much of the work out of it. It's just a pure, thematic, enjoyable experience where anything can happen. I mean, I played the same scenario twice, and it was significantly different, almost unrecognizable as being the same scenario. It changed so much within the app, and it was just as enjoyable playing the same scenario over the second time as it was the first time. And I want to get some of these other scenarios played because some of them are really interesting. I love the train scenario and the timed element that put in. Played 3 different scenarios and each one was completely different. The train was all about pushing forward and timed element to it. Had one where it was all about talking to people and trying to solve a mystery. And then the third one, there was a kind of mix of everything. It was a lot of combat, but there was also a little bit of mystery. And, each game was so significantly different and very fun.
Yeah, I've only given this one shot so far. I'm reasonably impressed with the game, and you're absolutely correct. The app basically removes the admin from the game. Most games require the players to perform the administrative tasks of the game to maintain the game state, and 90% of that is the app.
Yeah, I mean, I played the 1st edition that didn't have the app. I might have ranked that like 70 or 80. It's still a good, solid game, but it was 3-4 times as long because there was so much stopping and figuring out, okay, this is how this works, this is how that works.
James is mysteriously silent on this one. We may get back to this topic. Should I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Your number 3.
All right, my number 3. Now, let me premise this. There's a fixed number of games in my collection that both me and my brother consider nuclear warheads, quote unquote. Meaning that if one of us suggests the game, the other one of us is most likely going to just accept it outright. So my number 3 is one of these games, and it is Fortune and Glory. The giant coffin-sized box that is Indiana Jones in a box. Well, you can play it cooperatively against a vile organization. One of the vile organizations available is the Nazis. That's great. You can play it competitively where you're racing to accumulate a certain number of fortune. You're recovering lost artifacts from decrepit ruins. There are these cool little danger cards that represent all sorts of crazy things that can happen to your character, from midnight reservoirs to scaling mountain peaks. And it's a thematic mess, but it's an amazing thematic mess.
That is definitely 100% one of the games I want to play.
You see? I knew we'd hit another one.
Getting more and more on your list. I was just like, yeah, I definitely need to play that. And I'm pretty sure you got more to come.
Oddly, this was a game I was really, really interested in. When I saw it on Will Wheaton's tabletop, that's actually cooled my interest somewhat. They have a lot of mainstream games, and a lot of the games they play are not necessarily all that great. And when they played through it, didn't really sell it. Concepts behind it really seemed interesting.
I think it's one of those games you actually have to play because it's the experience.
Yeah.
So watching other people play is probably not as exciting as actually.
Yeah.
I feel like, much like Betrayal, you just have to accept the fact that you're going to be entering a roller coaster when you start this game.
Yeah.
And Fortune and Glory is high on my list because I can play this game and I can botch rolls left and right and fail miserably and get KO'd and sent back to my home city and all this other nonsense can negatively happen to your game and still have a blast. So there you go.
So I have Sadness for my number 2.
Your Sadness is your number 2?
Sadness is number 2. Because at the start of the year, or last year, I played this game, and I swear it would have made my number 1. It is so good. It is an excellent, wonderful game, designed by Nikki Valens. My number 2 is Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition.
Wow.
Wow, something beat it?
Something did beat it.
I am thoroughly impressed and also curious now. You have me on the line.
So, Mansion of Madness almost made my number 1. It is thematically perfect. If you don't give it anything else, the theme is 100% in the game. It is immersive. It's tense. Nathan was right in saying, like, every scenario is different. Some of them are so drastically different. It's amazing it's a board game. Like, I don't know how they did some of the things in the game. Like, in that train sequence that he was talking about, you felt like you were on a train. It's moving. You go into train stations. It's just crazy. The game is offloaded to the app, but you're still playing with tiles. These tiles are where the game is, but just the way that it thematically lays it out and the way that the story goes for it, you really do feel like you're on a moving train and things are happening. Which is amazing that a game can do that. And you could go from that to you're in a jungle, you're into a mansion that turns into a jungle, and you feel like that's happening, you're going out there and doing things. And there's so much content support for it. There's a ton of expansion that add a ton of levels. I think right now I have at least over 20 scenarios. It's just awesome. If you've never played Mansions of Madness, you are interested in mystery/horror themed game, this is the game to play. So, obviously, number 2, already talked about it, Mansions of Madness, 2nd Edition.
I am surprised that anything beat this, and it took me a second. There is one other game that I didn't think could have beat this, but it's not listed it yet. Has to be your number 1. I won't spoil it, but I've only played this game once. It hasn't made my top 10 because I haven't played it enough, but I'll see you for what.
You've only played it once?
Yeah.
I don't think you know what it is. Anyway, what's Nathan's number 2?
My number 2 is first 3-way crossover, I believe,
Oh.
which would be Terraforming Mars. Obviously, I'm the better one because I rank it so much higher, so my list is better.
Alright.
I mean, you both talked about this one, so there's not much more to say. It is a very solid Euro game. I love Euro games, but it's very hard for me to get them on my top 10 because when I'm playing a Euro game, I really get into it. They don't really have that resonance where you remember it years down the line. Terraforming Mars and Wingspan both made my top 10 because they are just that strong.
Terraforming Mars is a solid game. I don't know why you ranked it higher than Mansions of Madness, but it is a solid game.
Well, I gotta get more plays on Mansions of Madness still.
Alright, that's fair enough.
Yeah, play count factored into my distribution as well, so.
So, Dan, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is Glory to Rome. Glory to Rome is Glory to Rome.
Ooh.
So, Glory to Rome is the second oldest game in my top 10, the oldest one being Catan. So I've had it for a good long while. Got a good heaping pile of plays into it. Not every play goes my way. I certainly don't win it all the time, but something crazy happens every time we pull that game out. Because it is an engine building card game where the cards are multi-use and the building powers are all broken in the best way possible. Not all the building powers are stupid and broken. The lower level buildings that only take like one resource to complete are usually just like small buffs that make the other buildings so much better. But yeah, it's got a really good game arc to it. You do crazy things with it. I just played it this past weekend at Board Game Club. We had somebody walk into the room, point at the box on the shelf and was like, their jaw dropped. And they're like, is that glory to Rome? And I was like, yes, let me show it to you.
Yes, this is actually one of the Grail games that I have to play.
This is another one I was surprised it was your number 2. I thought this would be your number
Me too.
1. I think I may know your number 1, and I now realize what Jim's number 1 is, which is, wow, if it is what I think it is.
So, I didn't get this game too long ago, and I am incredibly surprised at how phenomenal it is and how much it hit off with my family playing it. I haven't played all the Legacy games out there, but I'm going to say it's the best Legacy game ever created.
Oh, okay.
So my number 1 was made by Isaac Childress, and it is Gloomhaven.
Ah, okay. This makes sense now.
Yeah.
Gloomhaven is just amazing. It takes Descent and makes it just fully cooperative without an app, and it works. And not only that, it has a wonderful campaign system with legacy elements built in. We just started off the bat, we played one game, and there's very few games that you can take like an hour or two, where my daughters are like, we have to play the next game. And that's definitely it. It's just so awesome to be able to level up your characters, to permanently change your characters, to permanently change the board in a legacy-style fashion. You don't even have to do anything linearly. It's like playing a video game. You unlock areas that you can go to through different side quests, the different things you do, and you can pick and choose where you go next and do different scenarios. There's 98 or some absurd number of game scenarios you can play in this. May even be some hidden, I don't know. There's so many hours in this game and so much content, and it's unbelievably engaging. I'm already looking forward to retiring my first character to go on to the next one. And that's going to at least take 15 hours of gameplay. More realistically, probably 20 hours of gameplay to be able to retire that character. It's just so good.
How long is a play session, just so I have a point of reference here?
It is variable based on the scenario they're playing. When we're playing it, they go from like 45 minutes to 2 hours. So they're not that long. And you have a timer in the game. And it's basically, the crux of the game is a card management system that does your everything, your actions and your combat. And a timer in the game is, you need to complete your objective before you can't draw cards, or you get knocked out. Because if you can't draw cards, you get eliminated. You're not dead. There's a variant that makes you dead, but in general, you're not dead. You're just removed from that level, so you can't help your teammates. However, if they do complete level or not, if you're playing the campaign, you still get your rewards that you would have got through that. But that adds a lot of stress to the game. That's good. Just managing that. It's definitely a game that I got to get you in a couple plays of. If we have a couple hours, we could probably knock out a couple of them.
This is another one I haven't had a chance to try. I am willing and able to try this one for sure. Another random question for you. Do you think this game would benefit from an app assistant? Just because it's another campaign-style game.
I actually think the app would get in the way of the game.
Interesting.
The only thing that I think the game really needs, like the price point on the game, although it seems high, is really good for what you get. But I think the game needs an organizer. Whether you buy your own at a craft store or you buy one of the wooden inserts, the game has a lot of components. It weighs like at least 25 pounds. I get exercise carrying it around. And I'm not joking. It is 25 pounds or higher. I don't know. It's obnoxious. It's super heavy. It's the heaviest game I have in my entire collection.
35, I believe it was. It does take a while to set up because you have so much to get out and organize each time. And
if you organize that, that's going to go a long way to trying to complete or get farther along in your campaigns. Because the initial setup, it's nice because you don't have a lot of components you have to worry about between scenarios. You just have a couple things you just pull out and you're ready to go. It's pulling out those couple things that's annoying. I'm definitely looking at organizing the game better. I have some organization set for it, but 100% recommend that if you get into Gloomhaven or you purchase it, that you definitely get an organizer.
I would say, yeah, the mechanics of this game are so well thought out and so clean. Yeah, the app is totally unnecessary. It would not really add much to it.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. The game needs physical assistance rather than data assistance. So
yes, it actually needs a physical assistance. That part's needed.
All right.
But yeah, my number one's Gloomhaven.
Well, thank you very much for enlightening me.
No problem.
Once you hinted it is a game that I played more than once, I did figure this is what it was. But I'm surprised because you've had this game for less than a month. And it's surprised it got up so high so quickly. But it is an excellent game, which is why it's also my number one.
Well, all right.
Oh!
A lot of crossover in this.
It's surprisingly awesome. It's one of those games where you look at it and you're like, ah. In fact, if Nathan didn't buy me Gloomhaven, which I'm super happy he did, I probably wouldn't have picked it up. And the reason is because it's a dungeon crawl.
And you've already got Descent.
I have Descent 2nd Edition, and Imperial Assault.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
I have everything in Descent 2nd Edition. I almost have everything in Descent. And I have at least a good portion of all the Imperial Assault. I would never have picked up Gloomhaven just because it's another dungeon crawler, but I am so glad I got it. It's just insanely good. It's almost to the point where I'm worried about Descent. I mean, I've had a lot of fun playing it, so it's probably going to still be on my list even if it doesn't get to the table for a little bit because of the experiences that I got playing. But I'm pretty sure Gloomhaven's going to obliterate it.
Now, are you planning to get Frosthaven?
Yes.
I got the expansion already. I got a couple custom scenarios from backing other Kickstarters. One of them's a Dice Tower custom scenario. I don't know if I'll ever get to them. There's so much content, but I still want to have them, and I want to get Frosthaven as soon as it comes out. I want to get more time on this. This is one of those games, like, I want to get to this table as much as I can. It's hard for me to get to the table because I have so many games I need to play, but I always want to play this game.
The other advantage, too, is this game actually works perfectly between 1 and 4 players.
Yes.
It works perfectly with 2 players. It works perfectly with 1 player. It works perfectly with 4. It is awesome.
It is phenomenally how well thought out this game. There is a lot of rules to this game, but once you've read them, I mean, even if you miss a rule, you stop, you think about it, you can figure out what the rule is just by using logic and just figuring it out. Everything makes sense.
It's pretty streamlined. And actually, the rules they're not complicated. There's a lot of, like, status effects and stuff like that, but you can just look them up. The main crux of the game is understanding the hand management.
I'm going to cheat.
Nathan cheated, so it's fair game.
My number one is Magic the Gathering. And that is cheating because Magic the Gathering is not a single game. Magic the Gathering is a subset of games that happen to use the same components. So you've got Draft, you got Sealed Deck, you've got Constructed, you've got different kinds of Constructed, Modern, Legacy, though I don't play Legacy, Commander, Standard, Pioneer, brand new, last year. Yeah, that was a thing. And I still play the game. I still play it like twice a week, which certainly is way more than any other game that I have access to. So I got to give credit where it's due. It's still demanding my attention, even after all these years. Like, I was first introduced to it in high school. I only started doing the competitive circuit like 5 or 6 years ago, but still.
I want to pick on you. I really do.
You want to pick on me, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just pretend I'm picking on you. But anyway.
Okay.
I think Magic the Gathering is undeniably best CCG ever created. You can use different matrices for that, but either way it is. So you can use sales, it is. You can use popularity, it is. You can use different mechanics and gameplay, it is. Magic the Gathering is a good pick. I liked it a lot. I generally got out of it because it was cost prohibitive for me. The amount of money it cost to stay relevant with some of the formats. Well, I will say that I think EDH is the best. They call it Commander now. Commander, EDH, or whatever is probably the best format of Magic for people who don't necessarily want to make a huge money investment but want to play an awesome game.
If you have a group that's all on the same page for Commander, then you can have an amazing experience. Getting on that same page can be a trial and error system. You try to build decks together, and then you play together, and then someone's deck is a little bit stronger than everyone else's, so everybody else tries to level up their deck just a little bit more. You have this self-contained power creep where the decks just keep on getting better and better because they can't equal each other ever. So at some point, you as the player have to recognize this, and you have to be like, all right, I'm not going to take this any further. I'm just going to keep this where it is because it does what it does, and these are the cards I enjoy playing the most, and if my game plan doesn't work, so be it.
And I did enjoy playing it a lot. I actually like playing Modern more than anything else. But Modern cost me a lot of money. So one of my decks was $1,200. And then the rotation of the cards in and out. Because new cards come out. So you have to keep your deck relevant. It's a living thing. So It's a lifestyle game. I definitely feel that it is worth playing. It's a good game.
That is true. That is true.
I've been quiet mainly because it's been at least 25 years since I played Magic the Gathering. This is long before I even knew about the board gaming community or modern board games at all. And I still enjoyed this game, but it's been forever.
I do want to pick on you, but I don't think it's cheating. I mean, if you want to separate it out, you can look at your plays. It's probably still going to be your number one, but,
Yeah, I may not cheat next time we make a list, because honestly, for me, Magic is several different games. Because I play different formats, and each format is basically its own self-contained experience.
Well, the only problem is nothing's going to unseat it, I don't think.
Maybe. We'll see. I think it'll be around for a long time.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem for me. Oh my lord, is anything ever going to overtake it? 6 years of near constant weekly play? We'll see. Maybe in another 10 years I'll be out of it.
So I definitely now have some questions of the things that didn't make each of your lists. But should we close this episode up and then continue on with the next episode with why things didn't make your list? Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback for us, feel free to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild 2989, or our website at tabletopgamingguild.com. And don't forget to like, follow, and or subscribe. Tabletop Gaming Guild is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild, LLC. All rights reserved.